We thought that maybe Bitcoin was a competitor to gold, but it's actually run up the leaderboard, and now it's starting to nip at the heels of the S&P 500 index ETFs. But if you would buy it because someone said it's a good idea, then you would sell it because someone said it was a bad idea, because you're not making your own decision. You're basically reacting to the crowd or sentiment or emotion. In the year 2024, like, this is the Bitcoin gold rush. The next 10 years is the most exciting opportunity to improve the world that has ever existed.
如果有时光机，你会去哪里呢？前几天有一位读者小 A 来找我咨询，他曾在2016年买过500美元的比特币。我内心想说，哇，赚翻了！现在比特币6万美元耶，上涨120倍。却没想到小 A 当时看到币价上涨，很开心就卖光了，完全错过后面的暴涨，太可惜了。残酷的现实是，他并不孤单，很多人都这样，这到底是为什么呢？而且即便有时光机回到过去，结果也不会改变，这又是为什么呢？让全球持有最多比特币的美国上市公司 MicroStrategy 创办人 Michael Saylor 告诉你。这次听完他近70分钟的访谈，我摘要出3个重点，不仅解答我们小资族在投资比特币会面临的焦虑原因，也发现原来比特币 ETF 比想象中更厉害，拥有庞大的商机，并且在最后 Michael Saylor 还会分享，如果有时光机，他最想回到什么时候呢？答案真的让我跌破眼镜，让我们一起听听看这次他说了些什么吧。嗨，我是 Emma，带你在币圈趋势中打造属于自己的被动收入，记得订阅并打开小铃铛，这样你就不会错过财富密码咯。
Well, you're traveling around the world now, giving the gospel of Bitcoin. So I want to hear, what is your feeling about the recent price action and the success of the ETF launch?
You know, I expected the ETF launch to be successful, but I think it's quite impressive just how successful it's been. At this point, we can see that these ETFs are going to surpass gold ETFs in not too long a time. The Bitcoin ETFs are the most successful ETF launch in 30 years, and apparently in the first 30 days, they outperformed every other ETF. They've crawled to the top of 3,500 competitors in short order. And I think that they have sparked, you know, the bull run and the upward movement in the price. I mean, definitely there's a huge amount of institutional capital flowing into Bitcoin right now that is driving the price because of asset scarcity. I think the most important thing, or the most important result of this, is the ETFs themselves represent regulatory clarity for Bitcoin as the institutional grade crypto asset. I think that's a very important thing. I think secondarily, the ETFs represent an on-ramp for institutional money, and they open up a gateway between $100 trillion or more of institutional money and Bitcoin. I think the third thing is they have sparked this price action, and as Bitcoin moves back toward its all-time high, they have generated an extraordinary amount of media coverage and Wall Street awareness, and Bitcoin benefits from the awareness of the asset class, because as of now, 99% of the mainstream investors really have an incomplete understanding of Bitcoin, and the best thing that we could do is just build awareness that it is an asset class, and then people will start to do the work to understand what it is. And so all three of those things have been catalyzed over the past month by these ETF launches.
真的，我在1月初发布的这部影片就有提到，当美国通过发行比特币现货 ETF 后，代表比特币在美国是合法的商品，而且结合传统金融交易工具，大幅降低我们操作的困难，将会吸引更多投资者进入市场。如果是你， 会因为这样而更想投资比特币吗？欢迎在底下留言分享你的看法。不论你会不会，市场告诉我们答案了。ETF 成功吸引超多投资者，这并不是我有预测的能力，而是历史不断重演，只是我们有没有记得。2004年黄金推出黄金现货 ETF 后，因为交易更便利，让更多投资者参与，黄金价格上涨420%。比特币被称为数位黄金，通过 ETF 后上涨了90%，是不是还有很大的发展空间呢
？Well, ETFs have been a very popular investing vehicle over the last decade, and it seems like it's not just going to eat into the gold ETFs, but perhaps even maybe something like the S&P, the SPY ETF, which has been so popular. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That is one of the surprising consequences. We thought that maybe Bitcoin was a competitor to gold, but it's actually run up the leaderboard, and now it's starting to nip at the heels of the S&P 500 index ETFs. If you're looking for an analogy, imagine a business without a website. You know, it was pools of money without an ETF ticker were mutual funds. So if we look at the history of investing, we kind of went from buy the stocks individually to trust a money manager with a mutual fund, and the mutual funds made Fidelity. And then 30 years later, the ETF came along, and it was a universal API that you could use to trade a mutual fund. So in the mutual fund world, it takes you a few days or a week or 2 weeks to set up an account, and it takes you a few days to move your money in the mutual fund. And you have to redeem your money, and it takes you a week to get your money out. And so it was a very slow, low frequency relationship. And the typical investor is going to just do business with one company like Fidelity. When the ETFs came along, you could have any stock trading app, and you could trade from one fund to another fund. You could trade, in and out of funds 6 times a day. You could every day say, well, I want to buy this thing from Fidelity, this thing from BlackRock, this thing from Vanguard. And you could put those funds in the same watch list as your Apple stock or your Google stock. So it's kind of the same impact the internet had, which is, there's a retail store, there's a restaurant, what's the website? Like, I want to say, let's go to a restaurant, you go check out the website, it says, this is where it is, this is how long it is, these are pictures of it, this is the menu of it. Now, imagine I tell you, we're going to meet at a hotel or in a restaurant, and there is no website.
Yeah.
You're like, no. Your reaction is, so how am I supposed to figure it out? Like, well, you get on a plane and you fly there and you walk through the door and you ask for the menu, and at that point they tell you what it is. You think that just seems so 20th century. So, you're laughing, but you can't do business without a website. The website is a universal API of information. That ETF ticker is the financial API for an investor. And so that has been extraordinarily successful, but Bitcoin, it's like Bitcoin didn't have a website, right? Bitcoin didn't have a website for institutional investors, and about a month ago, Bitcoin all of a sudden became something. You type it into, your Bloomberg, you type it into your Robinhood app, or you type it into any stock, E-Trade or any stock trading app, instant information, you can buy, you can sell. And of course, those ETF tickers, they don't just give people, perfect awareness and ability to transact. That's also the global protocol for trading volatility or for issuing credit. So if I had a bunch of money in Bitcoin and I wanted to get a loan against it, it might take me a month or 2 months to find someone that will give me a loan. Then I have to move to Bitcoin. Then I have to pay double the interest rate that's normal. And that's kind of scary. But after the ETF, people could have the same economic value in Bitcoin with JP Morgan or Merrill Lynch or Bank of America. And they could just say to this broker or banker they've been doing business with, like, I bought a house, I want a big mortgage on it, and I'm going to post a little bit of my Bitcoin as or securities as down payment against that mortgage, and I use it to get a mortgage, or I use it to get a margin loan, or maybe I could hedge against it. And so these ETFs opened up an entire financial world of awareness and opportunity and functionality to the 99% mainstream investors. And you really can't underestimate just how profoundly important that is to the entire network.
银行是否认列比特币当作资产，影响真的很大。我在去年买房，开始研究房贷相关内容，其中房贷很重要的关键就是财力证明。如果是投资股票、债券、基金，都可以当作财力证明的文件，有助于银行审核，更可能拿到贷款。但如果是提供虚拟货币比特币，台湾的银行是完全不认列，甚至非常排斥。现在美国已经通过比特币现货 ETF， 投资者等于多了一个工具可以使用，让资金发挥更好的效率。无论是用个人信用贷款投资比特币，或是透过比特币当作头期款买房，都会帮助这个市场更活络，未来的币价更令人期待。所以如果你也看好比特币未来的发展，想要跟上时代的红利，我准备一份比特币懒人包，非常适合你。总结我过去3年在比特币投资中的成功与失败经验，分享了正确的投资心态和实用步骤。你可以在资讯栏的第2条连结中找到。目前已经有超过500人领取，早早享受到了投资的回报。只要花3分钟看完，不用20年后，相信只要3个月后，你也会有同样的感受。
So you've now been through your first full 4-year cycle, the highs, the lows. What's your biggest lesson that you took away from the bear market?
I think the lesson of Bitcoin is the best asset. There is no second best asset. Buy Bitcoin. Keep buying Bitcoin. Don't sell the Bitcoin. Ignore the noise.
Were there any moments, though, I mean, when it was plummeting down, a lot of people thought it would go below 10,000, that anything made you a little nervous? You wish you had waited to buy some of it?
No. The truth is, other people with either less information or less awareness, if someone studies Bitcoin for an hour, then they will watch the news for 1,000 days, and they will have 87 moments of anxiety during which they'll sell the Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin has a lot of those people. Like, they heard someone say buy it, and then they buy it. But if you would buy it because someone said it's a good idea, then you would sell it because someone said it was a bad idea, because you're not making your own decision. You're basically reacting to the crowd or sentiment or emotion. So, a lot of people make investments based upon a recommendation from somebody else. And in the non-Bitcoin world, that's almost essential, because there's 10,000 stocks. Most people don't study. How many people spend 100 hours studying each of the S&P 500 stocks? Nobody. Okay, so if you own one of them, how many people spend 100 hours studying one stock that they own? 98% of people don't spend 100 hours studying the one stock. The stock analyst, the person that covers Apple, they spend 100 hours, and everybody else kind of outsources the thinking to that person and says the analyst put a buy rating on it, so I'll go ahead and take their recommendation, I'll buy the stock. And when the analyst puts a sell rating on it, they sell the stock. And that's understandable in the 20th century economy, because in a world where you have to sift through 100,000 different investment ideas to figure out what to buy and sell, you can't possibly do it. A dentist doesn't have the time to sift through 100,000 things. Okay, why do you have to sift through 100,000 different things in order to actually avoid losing all your money? And that's because the money's broken. Okay, so in a world where the money is broken, where there isn't a money where you can just buy the money and wait forever and have it go up, in that world, you're an investor and you're running your own hedge fund. And of course, most people don't have the time to run their own hedge fund, so they're the worst of all worlds. They're taking the risk of a hedge fund, but they're not putting the effort in to run a hedge fund. And even if they did, I mean, how many 65-year-old retirees, have the ability to do stock analysis on 500 different stocks? Like, I would argue almost none of them. So in this particular case, Bitcoin is a new asset class. It's digital money. Once you understand it's digital money, and you probably get there somewhere between 100 hours and 1,000 hours. Once you understand it's digital money, then you realize that the strategy is you just buy it and keep buying it and don't sell it until you have to pay a medical bill or until it's an urgent life or death matter where you just have to sell it. But otherwise, you just keep accumulating and you wait for all of the chaos and entropy and inefficiency and disorder that undermines every other asset to take hold. The longer the time goes on, the more difficult and the more disorder there is, and the more people appreciate the value of good money. So I wasn't bothered by the volatility. I was just waiting, for nature to right itself. And I think that the biggest mistake you can make is become insecure. Is it money? Is it not money? Right? Once you've made your decision, you're committed, then you're just thinking if the price is low, that means I get to buy more.
That's right.
真的超级认同 Michael Saylor 的观点，这也是我第一次完整经历币圈的4年周期。老实说，真的很不好受。如果你以为比特币币价从 6.9 万元一路暴跌到 1.5 万元已经够惨了，那还有更惨的。我投资的 NFT 99% 直接归零，原本活络友善的社群家人慢慢开始吵架，最后鸟兽散，变成陌生人各自离开。其他赛道会更好吗？我也玩了 GameFi、Stepen， 大家一起边跑步边运动还能赚钱，有什么比这更好的事情呢？没想到有钱能使鬼推磨，演变成大型赌场。投入100万，3天回本，完全就是暴利。结果很快又崩盘。原本是健康欢乐的运动社群，一吵起架来，我只能用失速列车来形容。结局呢，还是一样，鸟兽散，各自离开。炒币、合约、DeFi 就更不用说，全部跌烂躺平。少年币神消失了，币圈名人消失了，只剩下亏光的资产和孤单的自己。巴菲特有句名言，海水退潮时就知道谁没穿裤子游泳。值得庆幸的是，除了比特币外，我还找到了一个穿裤子的人。从2021年投资币圈至今，持续帮我默默赚钱，真的太默默，我都差点忘了他。是熊市在盘点资产，看看自己到底亏多少时，才发现，哇，居然有赚钱，那就是放贷。没有什么华丽的招数，只要简单做好3件事就能达成很棒的绩效。年化报酬率甚至远高于台湾 ETF 的0050以及美国 ETF 的 SPY， 风险却远低于操作合约交易 NFT。在时间的累积下，很开心加速实现买房的目标，让我在2023年成功买下人生第一间房子。如果我能更早看清楚这点，或许我现在的资产会多个0。我把我整个投资币圈的失败和成功的过程录成了一个45分钟的影片，你可以在资讯栏的第一条链接中找到。如果你也希望不用走任何弯路，浏览30天就能增加一份被动收入，享受自由生活的话，非常建议你先看过再投资，相信对你一定会有帮助哟。最开心的是，我也成功帮助来自台湾、杜拜、香港各地的同学们，透过币圈放贷获利，实现躺平赚钱的目标。下一位幸运儿是你吗？
你好，幸运儿。
你是何时进入币圈呢？完整经历过币圈的4年周期了吗？学到的最大教训又是什么呢？欢迎在底下留言分享你的看法。
Why should Jamie Dimon love Bitcoin?
Because Bitcoin is the future and JP Morgan is the greatest bank in the United States. And if it wants to remain the greatest bank in the United States or in the world, then it needs to support, the future of assets.
Why should Elizabeth Warren love Bitcoin?
because it empowers all of the disenfranchised in the world that she speaks for.
Why should a single mother on food stamps love Bitcoin?
Because it gives her hope to save for the future, and it's the best possible savings technology for her and her family.
Why should a boomer about to retire love Bitcoin?
Because everything else they could invest in or depend upon is riskier.
And lastly, why should a teenager in a third world country love Bitcoin?
Because it gives them a conduit to the first world and the global economy, and lets them participate in that economy.
Who has made the biggest impact on your life?
Satoshi.
Really? Okay, I love that. If you could transport yourself to any time in history, what would it be and why?
Now,
You want to
looking
be forward.
forward, we're going to look at history as before Satoshi and after Satoshi. And the ability to bring Bitcoin to the 99% of the world that has not yet embraced it in the year 2024, like, this is the Bitcoin gold rush. The next 10 years is the most exciting opportunity to improve the world that has ever existed.
What's better, having money or having power?
Money is power.
How often do you check Bitcoin's price?
Every few hours.
And who do you think is the smartest person in the world?
I don't think there is any one smartest person in the world. I think that knowledge is a vector. And I think that, in the time period when Beethoven was perhaps the greatest musician, you could have characterized Newton as the greatest physicist, but you could have pointed out to people like Leibniz as great thinkers. At any given time, there's 10,000 things, capabilities the human race needs, and there's 10,000 at the apex.
你觉得比特币 ETF 有可能超越美股标普500吗？政府和机构进入比特币后还会大暴跌吗？如果有时光机，你会去哪里呢？一、过去2008年比特币刚诞生。二、现在2024年跟上比特币淘金热潮。三、未来2045年等到比特币普及。为什么呢？欢迎在底下留言分享你的看法。我是 Emma， 还会继续分享关于币圈投资、被动收入的经验。记得按赞、订阅、开启旁边的小铃铛，并打开全部，还有 follow 我的 IG 哦，那你就不会错过这些知识了。我们下周见，拜拜。